is America's first sport. Now you might hear American football players or baseball players say, no, America's sport is our sport. But they're wrong. America's true first sport is lacrosse. And now a surprising amount of you have heard about lacrosse, which is really exciting, because there's a lot of people in America that don't even know what lacrosse is. But
don't over-exaggerate, everybody knows what it is in America.
But I'm from Maryland. And if Maryland loves anything, we love our lacrosse. So first, I'm going to give you some good vocab so you can leave this presentation speaking like a lacrosse player. So the first thing is a laxbro. What is a laxbro? They're someone that plays lacrosse. Now it might use bro, but it's not just men. Women can be laxbros too. So anyone that plays lacrosse is a laxbro. A body check. This means you hit someone with your body, so running into someone. A stick check is when you take the stick and you either hit their body or their stick, because lacrosse is played with sticks. Lax is just the shortened form of lacrosse. We just like to call it lax. A ground ball is exactly what it says, when the ball hits the ground. The crease is a circle around the goal that the goalie stands in. And offensive players, the people trying to score, are never allowed in there. It's to protect the goalie. A twig or a spoon is just another name for a lacrosse stick. Stick skills are the ability to throw and catch with both hands, as well as do certain tricks. So like I said, lacrosse is played with sticks. To be a very good lacrosse player, you should be able to throw and catch with both your right hand and your left hand.
Can it be called spoon skills?
You can call them spoon skills. And a cradle. So when you think of cradle, you think of cradling a baby. Well, we cradle in lacrosse too. You hold the stick like this and you move your wrists back and forth like this to keep the ball from falling out of the stick. So lacrosse, why is it America's first sport? Because it was originally played by Native Americans, the first people to live in America. So it was their game, and they played it by throwing a ball that you carry in a stick. The sticks have kind of an L-shaped or triangle at the top to help keep the ball in so it doesn't just roll all over the place. And netting helps with that. So here you have an example of the stick and someone diving to score. This little white line, that's called the crease. That's where the goalie is protected. So some of the basics. Lacrosse is called the fastest game on 2 feet. Now most sports are played on 2 feet, but this is a sport constantly with running. So as far as running sports go, it's the fastest. And it is the oldest sport for Americans. It is not just a cultural game for Native Americans, but also a religious game. They believe that the game was given to them by the Creator, or God, and that they play it to please Him. So they don't play to win, they play to please the Creator. Until the mid-1930s, men's and women's lacrosse had the same exact rules because no protective equipment was used. So, same rules. As it evolved, men got protective equipment and the game became more aggressive. Men's college lacrosse and women's college lacrosse started teaming with the NCAA, which is the governing body for all college sports in America, in 1971. Before, they had their own championships and they ran everything by themselves. Then the NCAA decided that they wanted them to become a part of their league. And U.S. Lacrosse was founded in 1998, and they are the governing body of all lacrosse. To play lacrosse in America, you have to register with U.S. Lacrosse, and you have to remain registered or you're not allowed to play on a team. So lacrosse was originally called Begataway or Tawaraton. And it's played in Native American tribes throughout the United States, but mostly in the tribes that are in upstate New York, known as the Iroquois, or also known as the Six Nations. So versions of the game have started as early as the 12th century, so long before we ever thought about football or baseball. The name lacrosse, which is French, meaning the cross, we called it that because of the shape of the stick. They thought it looked like a stick that priests or would walk in with, so they saw it and they called it the cross because of that. So the Iroquois, or the Six Nations, is also known as the Haudenosaunee. That's what they refer to themselves as. It means people of the Longhouse. The Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, Cayuga, Seneca, and Tuscarora tribes, they're the Six Nations. And when in international competitions, they represent the Native Americans in lacrosse. Begataway is Onondagan, and Tawaraton is Mohawk, and it roughly translates to bump hips, so your hips hitting each other, because the game was always very aggressive and they often ran into each other. They also refer to it as the creator's game or the medicine game. They believe that if they play in a way that pleases the creator, he will heal people on the tribe that are sick. For a long time, women were not permitted to play. They did not believe that women should play the game, and even today, women that play receive a lot of backlash from elders. In one instance, elders of the tribe actually laid down on the field so that women could not play. Native American men receive their first lacrosse stick at birth. It's about this big, and they receive a new one every year as they grow. They are hand carved from hickory wood, and takes about a year to make a wooden stick, and it's a spiritual experience where elders pray over the stick and everything. And this is a little baby, and there's his first lacrosse stick. So they are put in their cradle at birth. They keep all of their sticks. They never throw them away. So how did they play? Well, the main difference is the field. There was no field when they played. They ran through the woods. There was just free reign, and they could run anywhere. So the field was much bigger. They also played with a rock wrapped in deerskin. Today we play with a leather and rubber ball. Then they played with rocks. And they only played to a score of 5 or 7. Now, today in lacrosse, we play till the end of time, but then they had a set score they played to. And this is an example of a painting of what it would look like when they played. So very, very aggressive, and a lot of people. So, like I mentioned, they get their sticks at birth. So the stick is very, very important to them. It's seen as sacred. They treat their lacrosse sticks as an extension of their own body. It's like another limb to them. So all the respect that you would give to your body, you give to your lacrosse stick. You don't throw it on the ground. You don't kick it under your bed. It is kept in a special place and always treated with respect. Though modern technology has given us metal sticks, titanium sticks, Native Americans still prefer to play with wooden sticks when permitted. The NCAA outlawed the use of wooden sticks because they're a little bit harder when they hit and can cause more bruising. But in international games, they're still allowed to use them. They receive the first stick at birth. No one else except the owner of that individual stick is allowed to touch it or carry it. So you cannot go to a Native American tribe and pick up someone's lacrosse stick. It's considered to be very disrespectful. And today, you can buy handcrafted wooden sticks made by stick makers on Native American tribes, but they are very expensive, and they tend to only do it if it's a special occasion. And when they make the stick for you, you have to come to the tribe to be educated about the importance of not only the stick, but also the game. They don't just sell them because it looks cool. So any questions so far? No? So today we want to continue to respect the contribution the Native Americans have made to this sport that we love to play. So we started the Tewaaraton Award. Tewaaraton, as I mentioned, is the Mohawk name for lacrosse. It has been awarded every year at the end of the lacrosse college season since 2001. It is like the Heisman Trophy in college football. It is awarded to the best player in both men's and women's lacrosse. The award alternates between all of the 6 nations. So the year of the Seneca, the year of the Mohawk. They all alternate. And then it is sponsored by the Council of Elders, or they are the governing body of Native American tribes, so the older people in the tribe as the governing body, and they come together with other committees of college lacrosse coaches to vote on who they think deserves the award. Not only for how well they've played, but also for how well they've respected the game. Were they a good sport? Did they do well in school? Things like that. And the purpose of the award is to continue to remind people where the sport came from. It came from the Native Americans. And along with the award, 2 scholarships are awarded annually to Native American students that are going away to play lacrosse in college. Many Native Americans do not leave the reservation because college is very expensive, and they are worried about losing their way of life. And this is a way to help those that want to go and get an education so they can come back to the reservation to help do so. Even though this is an award to honor Native Americans, no Native American had ever won the award until 2014, when brothers Lyle and Miles Thompson won the award together. That was the first time a Native American had ever won the award. Lyle Thompson went on to win it the next year as well, so he's won 2 times in a row. This is what the award looks like, fashioned after what the Native Americans wore while they played the game with the old traditional wooden stick. And this is Lyle and Miles Thompson. They're wearing traditional outfits that Native Americans of the Haudenosaunee Nation wear. So, the players and positions. Lacrosse, like any other sport, has positions. Everyone has a role to play. So, the goalie, up at the top. He defends the goals and tries to prevent scoring. So, if you want to score a goal, you have to shoot on him. He can block the shot using either his body or his stick. Defenders or defensemen. Defenders is what they are called in women's lacrosse. Defensemen is what they are called in men's lacrosse. There are only 3 on the field at all times in men's lacrosse, 4 in women's lacrosse. They stand in front of the goal and in front of the goalie to try and help prevent scoring as well. They have a stick that has a 6-foot, so a little bit less than 2 meter long shaft that they use to body check and kind of control the movement of the offensive players. Midfielders play both offense and defense, which means they can move to either side of the field. They can score, they can play defense. These are usually your fastest players on the team and the one with the most endurance, which means they can run for a really long amount of time without getting tired. And then attackers or attackmen. Attackers is in women's lacrosse, attackmen in men's lacrosse. There are 3 in men's lacrosse, 4 in women's lacrosse. They are the offensive players. They are the ones that score. So they're always on the offensive end. They're the ones trying to score on the goalie. Here's a defenseman. here's an attackman, so what you might see on a field. He's trying to control and close off using his body. If he tries to run this way, he'll run into him. And he's big, so he's not going anywhere. Substitutions do occur in lacrosse, but there's a way that they have to be done. They have to be done while the game is being played, so while everyone is moving, and through a substitution box, so one at a time. One person has to come off the field before another one can go on. So you can never have more than the allowed amount of players on the field at a time. So today, we play the game a lot different than how they played it back with the Native Americans. So this is an example of a lacrosse field. The time of the game is an hour. For men's lacrosse, you have 4 quarters. Each quarter is 15 minutes long. Then you have a small break for halftime. Then you come back and play 2 more 15-minute quarters to try and determine a winner. If you are on offensive side, you cannot go past this line. Defensive side cannot go past this line. Midfielders can run up and down the field fine. They are played with 10 players in men's lacrosse and 12 players in women's lacrosse, including the goalie, on the field at all times. Unlike when the Native Americans played, there is no set score. So you have an hour and you play from the start to the finish of that hour, regardless of what the score is. Lacrosse games can never end in ties. So, for example, hockey can end in a tie. Soccer can end in a tie. Lacrosse cannot. If it goes to a tie, you go to what is called sudden victory overtime, which is an extra 15 minutes. Whoever scores first wins. Players are subbed out constantly throughout the game. The only player position that will play the entire hour is the goalie. The goalie stays in the entire time, the only player.
Jackie?
Mm-hmm.
If no one scores in the 15-minute overtime, do you go to another overtime?
Yes, you go into a constant overtime until someone scores.
Do you know what the longest game lacrosse has ever gone to?
The longest game of lacrosse was 8 overtimes, and it was between Maryland and Virginia. So 8 overtimes. It went about an extra hour. So what skills and equipment do you need? First, you need your stick, which is usually aluminum or titanium, and the heads are plastic. The pocket, or what the ball sits in, is either made of a mesh, which is kind of a netty material, or leather. So old leather strings to tie it together. Women's players are still allowed to use wooden sticks because women are not allowed to have body-to-body or stick-to-body contact. So the game is very quick. You have to be able to sprint, so start running at a fast pace very quickly, and be able to run for a long amount of time. You're constantly moving. And it's used as a training sport for sports like football and basketball. Basketball for foot movement, being able to move very quickly, and football, hand-eye coordination. The game needs athleticism. It does involve a lot of endurance, but also strength. You need to be strong. And, of course, the most important is hand-eye coordination. You are using a stick to throw and catch. You can never use your hands. So you need to be able to use that stick to throw and catch at all times, or if not, you could get hit in the face, and it will be very painful. So, the equipment. Just like ice hockey, men's lacrosse requires a lot of protective gear because it is a high-contact sport. And players are always encouraged to have 2 of everything. In case something goes wrong or you break one, you need to have a backup. So it's important that you have 2 of everything. That includes cleats. If something happens to your cleats or a friend of yours forgot his, you need to have another pair. So it can be very, very expensive to play this sport, which is why not a lot of people in the US do play it. So for boys lacrosse, you need a helmet, so over your head, shoulder pads, rib pads to prevent bruising in your ribs, arm pads to cover the arms, gloves, a mouth guard, and your sticks. So that's about $250 to $400 per player. Then with girls lacrosse, you need a lot less equipment. You need a mouth guard, goggles to protect your eyes, and the stick, and of course cleats. So women's lacrosse is around $125 to $175 per player. The only player in women's lacrosse that needs full equipment is the goalie, because she could still get hit with the ball, so she needs a chest protector and a throat protector. So most lacrosse is outdoors, but we do have indoor lacrosse, which is called box lacrosse. And this is more common in Canada than it is in the US. So what is box lacrosse? When the first settlers came to the US, they took an interest in lacrosse and they started to play it. Afterwards, they formed their own leagues. They were amateur leagues, so not professional and mainly done just for fun and exercise. The Native Americans wanted to participate as well. It was their game. They had taught the settlers how to play. The settlers said, no, you're too good. You're professionals. You can't play with us. So the Native Americans decided, okay, we'll start our own league. And so they started box lacrosse. Box lacrosse, unlike field lacrosse, is played in a closed arena, and the rules and equipment favor ice hockey more than field lacrosse does. So it's much more aggressive, and the size of the goal is smaller. So here's an example of box lacrosse. The goal looks almost like a hockey goal, an ice hockey goal, and they also fight in box lacrosse, which is borrowed from ice hockey, which might be why it's so popular in Canada, because Canada loves ice hockey.
Since, as you said, from Canada, so people use it to train for hockey in the off season when there's less ice a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
popular in the place that we go as well. We go and watch it.
To do as a training sport. There are professional NLL teams, are indoor teams as well. Any questions so far? No? Okay. So, today, lacrosse is played by 750,000 people within the United States. It is considered the fastest growing sport. It's not as popular as football and basketball, but among the youth level, it does have more participation. It's most popular in states like Maryland and upstate New York. So not New York City, but the suburban areas of New York. We refer to areas that are lacrosse is very popular as hotbed. And lacrosse has two professional leagues, Major League Lacrosse, MLL, and National Lacrosse League, the NLL. And lacrosse holds an international tournament every 2 years. So kind of like the World Championships or FIFA World Cup. We do that for lacrosse as well, but much smaller. So this family is considered the first family of Baltimore lacrosse. The first family in the US is usually used to refer to political families. There are 8 children, 4 boys and 4 girls, and every single one of them played lacrosse in Division I. So they became our first family of lacrosse. And they have funny names. His name is Steele, and he has a younger brother named Shackelford, who everyone just called Shaq. So lacrosse has been getting more coverage in the media. So we have 2 publications, magazines for lacrosse, Inside Lacrosse and US Lacrosse Magazine. It has made small appearances in movies like Mean Girls, where Regina George, the main plastic, played it at the very end after she recovered from getting hit by a bus. And it had larger roles in a small movie, A Warrior's Heart, and Crooked Arrows. Crooked Arrows was the first film entirely about lacrosse, and instead of casting actors, they actually casted real lacrosse players. It was also a movie that had a primarily Native American cast, so everyone that was playing a Native American was Native American in this movie. It has also became the sport for the MTV reboot of Teen Wolf, which was very popular in the late 70s, early 80s. And lacrosse doesn't always have a positive reputation. It is seen as a sport played by people that are spoiled and rich because it is very expensive to play, so it's not always something that we treat positively. So we start at youth lacrosse. In the US, we have big youth sports. As soon as you can walk, you're playing some type of sport even if you don't realize it. They're training you, throwing the ball, going out and playing catch with dad. We start sports very young. So you start playing youth lacrosse around 4 or 5 years old. And you play by the standard rules that you would play in college. The difference being they're not allowed to check, which means it's no contact, because you give 5-year-olds sticks and tell them to hit each other with them, and it could get really, really dangerous very quickly. Teams will take full standard rules at around 10 years old, which is where they start teaching how to check and allowing contact. You can compete in both recreational or the rec or club leagues. Recreational, anyone can sign up to play. You just have to pay a small fee and your parents bring you. Club teams are a little bit more advanced and they're tryout only. And they're a little bit more expensive to play. Rec leagues will stop before high school. So you can play from kindergarten to 8th grade. Whereas club leagues will go all the way up until you graduate high school. So right before you enter college, you can play on a club league. Then at high school. High school sports are important because in the US, you can get a spot in a college and get scholarships to attend college if you're good at a sport. So we usually separate our schools into 2 types, public and private. Public is determined by where you live, and it's free to go to, so your taxes pay for public school. Private, you can choose, and you have to pay tuition. Lacrosse tends to be more popular in private schools. High school lacrosse plays under NCAA college rules to help them prepare for transitioning into college. High school teams are tryout only. So anyone can come to a tryout, but not everyone will make the team. And they usually keep about 30 players. Private schools can recruit, which means they can bring people from other schools and other areas to come play on their team. High school performance is extremely important because it's your high school coach that will begin to contact college coaches for you. They will help you get the attention of the college that you want to go to. And college coaches can start to contact possible recruits in September of your junior year of high school. So the year before you graduate is when college coaches can start to contact you, and that's when people usually say, okay, I'm going to this college, and they make a commitment. So this is a very big lacrosse school in Maryland, Boys Latin. They are consistently ranked #1 in the country. So college lacrosse, unlike most sports, is the main stage. This is the top level. Professional lacrosse is not very popular, and not a lot of people go to watch these games. But we do like to watch our college lacrosse. So we have 61 Division I teams, 46 Division II teams, and 189 Division III teams for men's lacrosse. The NCAA separates schools into divisions. The best sports schools are Division I, medium level, Division II, and then a little bit weaker, Division III. For women's lacrosse, there are 92 Division I teams, 67 Division II teams, and a couple Division III teams, around 200 Division III teams. Division III tends to be the largest division. College lacrosse season starts in February, so when in America there's actually still snow on the ground, and it ends the last week of May with the NCAA championship. So unlike basketball and football, which will offer around 60 scholarships, football can offer around 83 scholarships, lacrosse can only offer 12. So a really, really big difference. And the reason for that is because lacrosse is considered a non-revenue sport, which means it does not make the school any money. Whereas college basketball and college football make colleges millions of dollars. They make them a lot of money. But we do have professional leagues. We have the MLL, which is outdoor lacrosse, and the NLL, which is indoor box lacrosse. The NLL and the MLL both have 9 teams split between the US and Canada. So we play Canada and the US. The MLL rules are completely different than college rules. You can earn 2 points, where usually a goal is only 1 point. In the MLL, you can earn 2. And a shot clock, which means you have a limited amount of time on offense before the ball is turned over. Kind of like basketball. Basketball has a shot clock. NLL and MLL players have to work other jobs because they would never be able to support themselves on the salary they make playing lacrosse. It's not a professional sport where you can make a living. And if you don't play, you don't get paid. Lacrosse is played internationally, and we have the Federation of International Lacrosse, which is the governing body for that. A championship is hosted every 2 years, and there are 51 countries registered, including Scotland, England, Australia, Japan, Uganda, etc. Last year that we've had it, 2014, was the last championship. Russia and Uganda entered their first teams. Both of them won 2 games, and it was really exciting to see new countries come in because the ultimate goal for lacrosse is to be in the Olympics. Most teams, however, are made up of Americans with ancestral ties to other countries, which means if your grandfather was Italian, you could play for Team Italy. Because these teams want to play, but not a lot of people in those countries do play lacrosse, so sometimes they have to borrow players. And in contrast to the Olympics and other world championships, you do not have to have citizenship within a country to represent that country in the world championships. You just have to have some familial ties. And this is the medals that you get. So just like any other world championship, you get a gold, a silver, and a bronze medal. The FIL made the news with a controversy that it got even American politicians involved. So in 2012, the Iroquois national team was prevented from playing in the games in England. This was considered a big deal because the Iroquois national team represents the Native Americans. They invented the game. How can you tell them they can't play? Well, it stemmed from their passports. Their passports, tribal passports, are handwritten, which means they don't live up to standards required by international law. The UK refused to issue them visas because the US and Canada said that they would not allow them to re-enter the country on those passports because they could not tell if they were forged. The governments did try to come to a compromise. They said, we will give you temporary US and Canadian passports to travel on just this one time. But the tribe refused them, saying it was an insult to their sovereignty. They said, we are an independent country. We are not American. We are not Canadian. We don't want your passports. So they refused the passports. The Secretary of State at the time, Hillary Clinton, decided to get involved. She said that the U.S. would allow them to travel and re-enter this one time. However, by the time she made that decision, it was too late for the UK to give them visas, so the UK refused. It was just too late, and they were prevented from playing in those games. Women's lacrosse today is a completely different game than men's lacrosse. You wouldn't know that they were the same game. So there's no professional league for women at the time. The highest for women is college. Women's lacrosse has 12 players instead of 10. So an extra attacker and an extra defender. There is no contact allowed in women's lacrosse. You are allowed to stick check, which means you can hit two sticks together, but you cannot have any body contact, and that is because women do not wear any protective equipment. The only equipment they wear are these goggles to protect their eyes. Because it's a no-contact sport, women's lacrosse sticks almost look like a tennis racket. There's no pocket to keep the ball sitting in there securely. It can bounce out very easily. And all women's lacrosse sticks are the same length. So men's lacrosse defenders have very long sticks. In women's lacrosse, all the sticks are the same length. Women's lacrosse plays in two halves, two 30-minute halves, and their overtime is different. They do not do sudden victory. They just play another half hour, and teams can score as many times as they want in that half hour. So, Maryland is considered lacrosse's capital. We are known for lacrosse, even though our state sport is jousting. If you ask anyone from Maryland, we'll tell you it's lacrosse. The rise of lacrosse in Maryland happened mainly because we didn't have any professional sports until 1947 when we got our first NFL team. But until then, it was only college sports. The U.S. Lacrosse Headquarters and National Lacrosse Museum and Hall of Fame are located in Baltimore, Maryland. We have hundreds of lacrosse teams, so you have a lot to choose from. And people sometimes move with their children from southern states like North Carolina to Maryland just so they can play on a better lacrosse team. Maryland players make up over 50% of Division I lacrosse players. We do have a professional team. They're the Chesapeake Bayhawks. We have 7 Division I schools, and we are the winningest state in lacrosse. We have 27 championships. 9 by Johns Hopkins men's lacrosse, 5 by the University of Maryland's men's lacrosse, 1 by Loyola men's lacrosse, and 13 by the University of Maryland's women's lacrosse. The most prominent team is Johns Hopkins. Johns Hopkins is known mainly internationally for their medicine and their hospital, but their men's lacrosse team is pretty good as well. So they were established in 1883, and it's their only Division I sport. All of their other sports are Division III. It is the only lacrosse team to have a television deal with ESPN. ESPN is our major sports network. And what that means is ESPN has agreed to televise every single one of Johns Hopkins' games. So you can always watch Hopkins on TV, but they are the only team that has that agreement. They have won 44 national championships, 9 Division I titles from the NCAA, 29 from the previous governing body, and 6 international lacrosse titles. In 1974, the Johns Hopkins lacrosse team represented the United States in the Lacrosse World Championships, and they won gold. In 1928 and 1932, we represented the U.S. in the Olympics, when lacrosse was a demonstration sport, but medals were still handed out, so players on that team have 2 Olympic gold medals. And the University of Maryland and Johns Hopkins play in what is called the most historic rivalry. They have met and played over 100 times. The team holds the most consecutive times in the playoff streak of any sport, college or professional. 41 consecutive years, they had always made the playoffs. That streak was ended in 2013. They have played 12 undefeated seasons, more than any other team. They have produced 65 Hall of Fame members. They have 580 All-Americans, which are an honor for the best players, and 182 first-team All-Americans. And they have 955 total wins, making them the winningest team in lacrosse history. No team has won more than they have. The University of Maryland. The University of Maryland is Maryland's largest school. It is our state school. It has fielded a men's lacrosse team starting in 1922, so after Hopkins. It has produced 110 lacrosse All-Americans. They are one of only 8 other teams to have never finished with a losing record. So they might have a tied record, 50%, but have never had a losing record. They were one of the founding members of the Atlantic Coast Conference, or the ACC, which is the most competitive conference in lacrosse, until they left to join the Big Ten Conference. And in 2011, they started the Forever Young Foundation to raise money for a player for pancreatic cancer after one of the player's mothers passed away from the disease. And they hold annual fundraisers for that. But if there's a team that really represents Maryland very well, it is our University of Maryland's women's team. They are the winningest team in women's lacrosse history and are one of the most winningest teams in women's sports history. They have been around for 41 years and started playing in 1974. They're among the oldest women's lacrosse teams. They have 13 NCAA championships, more than any other team in Division I. And in the 90s, they had a 7-year streak where they won every single year. So they won 7 NCAA championships in a row. And they hold the record for playoff and championship appearances. No other team has made it into the playoffs or the finals in women's lacrosse more than Maryland. Our college is pretty good, but so is our high school. So the MIAA, are the Maryland Interscholastic Athletic Association, a conference, was named the most competitive league in the country by U.S. Lacrosse. People come from all over the country and even from Canada to play teams from Maryland. Because if they win, they can brag about it, and it's just good practice. The MIAA is private school only. So this is tuition-based school. No public schools are in the MIAA. And it's schools from Baltimore City and Baltimore County. The schools are Boys Latin, the Gilman School, which my brother attends, Calvert Hall, College High School, St. Paul's, Loyola Blakefield, St. Mary's, St. Joseph's, and McDonough. So it's not a big conference or league, but these teams are always at the top. They have produced more Division I lacrosse players than any other athletic conference in the country. And they are consistently ranked in the top 10 by the media. So anywhere that ranks sports, these schools are always ranked in the top 10. And this is Boys Latin and Loyola, 2 of the schools. Under Armour, which is a Baltimore-based company, it was started by a University of Maryland graduate, decided to sponsor a tournament for high school players in Maryland and all over the country. And they're the Under Armour All-American Games. So they're only for high school, boys and girls. They started in 2005, and they divide the country into regions. The DC region, the South, the North, upstate, the West, as a way to make more teams. And they hold tryouts to find the best for underclass, which means anyone that's not a senior in high school. And then there's a senior showcase for the people that are going to graduate and go on to college, and that is invitation only. So it's only given to the best players, senior players in the entire country. And they divide it into two sections for the senior showcase, North and South. And all the games are played in Maryland. We also have a lot of rec and club. And we've had people move from Florida to play on one of our club teams. And he lived with a family that decided to house him. So he didn't even live with his mom or dad. They did move with him. He just moved by himself. So children in Maryland are basically born with lacrosse sticks in our hands. It's one of the first sports that we would ever pick up. Before football, before basketball, it's lacrosse. We start playing around 4 or 5 years old. We have hundreds of rec teams to choose from, all over the state. Our rec and club teams are extremely competitive, and there's so much demand that sometimes rec teams have to hold tryouts, or they will separate the groups so that they can have more than one group per age division, because there's so many kids that want to play. Our most famous club team is the Baltimore Lacrosse Club Crabs. The team travels all over the country and sometimes internationally to play. And they host two tournaments in Baltimore. The team is so popular that players have come from California, from North Carolina, from Florida, from Colorado to try out for this team. And if they make it, the head of the organization tries to help them find host families. So if they make the team, they can find a local family to live with, or they might live with some of their teammates' families. And from the Crabs, all of the players go on to play college lacrosse, with 75% of them going Division I. They have produced, as far as club teams, the most Division I players of any other club team in the country. So if you think this is kind of cool, and maybe you'd be interested, they do play lacrosse in Russia. In 2014, Russia entered their first team, a 23-man roster, and played in the World Championships in Denver, Colorado. Lacrosse has been growing in popularity in Russia, with games being held in Moscow and St. Petersburg, as well as clinics, so where you can learn how to play the game from Americans or Russian players. There are two teams right now, the Moscow Rebels and the St. Petersburg White Knights. They meet twice a year, and the winner is crowned the champion of Russia. If they split the games, they split the title. American David Diamanin started hosting the clinics in 2007 when he moved to Russia for work. And while the teams are mainly made up of Americans that are working in Russia, they have seen a lot of growth in Russians interested in playing the game. And the team that they put into the World Championships was all Russian. So no Americans of Russian ancestry played on that team, just Russians.
Are you a lax bro?
I know a lot about lacrosse, but I never played because I always wanted to play boys lacrosse and was never allowed. I have two brothers, and they played, and so I learned playing the boys' way, and you're not allowed to hit people in the girls' game.
It's not interesting for you.
Yeah.
Do they keep the sticks?
Yes, my brother has kept all his sticks. He does not have any wooden sticks, though. But he does keep all of them, yes.
Can you become a judge?
A judge? A referee?
Yeah.
I could, yes. I could ref. Women can ref men's lacrosse games, but it's rare.
Any more questions? No? Okay. Thank you, Jacklynn.
Thanks a lot.